A typical home costs $1 million or more in a record number of US cities. And I'm sure basically all of you watching this are disappointed, but are not surprised. The middle class has watched real estate go up by an absolutely insane amount in the past 5 or 10 years. You can see that the government tracks this. It's the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. They track real estate prices specifically. This is the median sales price of houses sold for the United States of America. And it has been a wild and bumpy ride, as you can see, since the drop in 2008. And we're just going to go ahead and zoom on that section right here. It's been huge. It's going up from 233,000 or a low of 208,000 to where it is now at $417,000 just at the median. So half of houses cost more than this and half of houses cost less than this. And we've seen this tiny dip right here, sure, with little gains, but a lot of this is seasonal and this is not seasonally adjusted. So we're probably going to see these prices kind of go up and down over the next few months. But an interesting thing I want to show you here is if prices had held steady at what they were since 2000 looking to now, so if the prices had kept up basically with inflation, then we can actually check that number. And in 2000, it was about $165,000 per house. Today, that $165,000 is worth $305,000, but the median price, as you can see, is $417,000. So housing has far outpaced the average inflation overall. And I realize that housing is part of the inflation calculation. It goes into the CPI basket of goods, but some of those goods have not gone up as much as others, and housing has far outpaced the rest of them. And housing tends to be most people's most expensive bill, so it becoming the most expensive the fastest is actively the worst for everyone. Now, this data was gathered by Zillow, but it's been summarized and gone over and picked apart by a lot of business-related websites, including Fox, which says in February, the nation boasted $550 million cities where the median home value was north of 7 figures, up from 491 a year ago, the analysis shows. California had the most cities with homes valued over $1 million, totaling 210, which I'm sure came as a surprise to no one. New York had 66, while New Jersey, which experienced the largest year-over-year increase, had 49. Zillow noted that the limited housing inventory keeps pushing home values up, and according to the National Association of Realtors, prices are expected to remain elevated. Affordability is still a big challenge for buyers, but that hasn't stopped prices from growing, Anushna Prakash, an economic researcher, data scientist at Zillow, said in a statement. If mortgage rates drop later this year, as many expect, we may see a surge in million-dollar cities as even more buyers jump in and drive prices higher. So prices are basically expected to keep going up because inventory is consistently and in many cases artificially being kept low. And that's usually by local city zoning ordinances that don't allow construction companies to actually build houses that people are able to buy, usually in the $100,000 to $200,000 range. Now, CNBC also covered this. Here it says, the boost in million-dollar cities is a result of the mortgage lock-in effect, which deterred homeowners with extremely low rates from lifting their properties for sale, says Skylar Olson, a chief economist at Zillow. The demand is keeping supply limited in some markets and elevating sales prices for those few available opportunities. And as you can see here, they have a nice graph showing the number of million-dollar cities since 2000. And there were only $17 million cities in 2000. Remember, this isn't adjusted for inflation, so $1 million in 2000 is vastly different from $1 million today. And actually, I didn't have this in my notes, but I can go ahead and plug this in and see $1 million in 2000 is worth basically 1.8 million, almost $1.9 million today. So there's some inflationary shenanigans going on there, but overall, it's still a huge amount of jump from 17 to 550. That's borderline absurd. So we're seeing these increases in million-dollar cities for several reasons. The first one is just regular old inflation. The prices of houses is going to go up over time, generally and preferably between about 2 and 3%. But what we've seen is that it's gone up basically 400% since the year 2000. And housing prices increasing is not necessarily a bad thing. It's when it increases and outpaces salaries by the amount that it is. that's when it becomes a bad thing, is when salaries don't keep up such that people are consistently and reasonably able to afford these houses. The second reason that housing prices continue to go up is that there's just not enough housing inventory. This is tracked by the Housing Inventory Core Metrics from Realtor.com. It says housing inventory, active listing count in the United States. And as you can see from when they started tracking this and reporting it so that the government could use it in 2016, the number of houses has dropped from basically 1.5 million down to basically 700,000, a drop of just over 50%, which is absolutely huge. And this is bad because supply is dropping, and that's even worse than you might think because the total population of the United States is going up. So if we jump this to 2000 and come on, work with me here. 2016, the population has gone up from 323 million up to 333 million people. So we've had an increase of 10 million people. And in that time, as more and more people are entering the population and more people are hitting the age at which they would like to buy a house, post-college between 22 and 35, we're seeing the number of available houses go down. So population is going up and the number of houses available is going down. And that's going to drive the price way, way up because of course it is. There are fewer houses, so people are forced to pay more in order to get the houses. So essentially, nobody is selling houses and nobody is building new houses. So the total number of houses that are available for anyone in the middle, lower, or upper class to buy is going down. And when the number of houses goes down, the price goes up because the people that have the money to buy the house are willing to pay more. And the people that don't have the money to buy the house just have to not be able to buy the house and continue to pay rent until they can, which might be years and years more. And that's years and years of money that they've thrown away to rent. Now, every time housing unaffordability is talked about, lots of people bring up this belief that corporations are buying up all the houses. And as such, that is driving housing prices up. Usually some names that are thrown out are BlackRock and Vanguard, neither of which directly really invest in real estate, I don't believe, but they do invest in subsidiaries that invest in real estate. And while it might be true that in some localities, large companies are going in and buying up real estate, think San Francisco, Austin, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, and so on and so forth, at a national level, this is not actually that much of an issue. Housing Wire put out this article that says, no, Wall Street investors haven't bought up 44% of the homes this year. This is referencing a specific article that went viral. I think it was on TikTok that miscited a statistic, misunderstanding what it actually meant. And the correction they put out was this image right here, which, as you can see, tier 1 investors, who are investors that own between 1 and 9 properties, bought only 20% of houses. And this is people who have moved away and think they might move back. So they're buying another house, but they're going to go ahead and rent the one they already own so that they can cover the mortgage, or someone who's retired wanting a second home near the beach so that they can hang out with their family and not have to pay for expensive Airbnbs every time they go. This could be any number of totally legitimate reasons for having a second house. And that's 20% of the houses bought, which is a lot, but this is not large investor coming in and buying up all the real estate in a city in order to drive rental prices up. And as you can see, companies or people owning between 10 and 99 properties is only 2.7% of total housing inventory. And then it goes up from there and up from there and up from there. So these numbers here make up maybe 3.5 or 4% of total houses available, and the other 94 or 93% of houses are being bought generally by individuals. Now, could these houses have been put to better use by being bought by individuals who just want to move in and own their own home? Absolutely. I'm not going to argue that statement, but it is worth noting that the huge amount of price increase that we're seeing nationally is not specifically because these companies are coming in and buying up all the houses. It is because construction companies are not allowed to build new constructions in cities where they would like to in order to make a profit. As such, the housing market is kept high because the total number of houses is low, and actually, as you can see, the total number of houses available is actively decreasing. We have a population that is continuing to grow and needing more houses, and then we have laws actively preventing people who would like to build houses from actually being able to build the houses. That is the core of the issue. Are there some issues with corporations coming in and buying up a bunch of houses? Absolutely, and that is something that I would be in favor of regulating. But on a large scale, this is not having the effect that NIMBY laws, not in my backyard laws, are having, where local city councils are banning people from building because they don't want their property values to go down. Thanks for watching.